In the quiet hours of a long-ago evening, beneath the silver light of a full moon, an old bamboo cutter made his way along a narrow forest path. The towering stalks around him swayed gently in the night breeze, their leaves whispering softly overhead, like distant voices sharing forgotten secrets. For many years, the old man had followed the same routine. Each morning and evening, he entered the bamboo groves that covered the hillsides of ancient Japan, gathering the tall green stalks that would become baskets, tools, fences, and countless other useful things. His life was simple, familiar, and deeply connected to the rhythms of the natural world. Yet on this particular night, something unusual waited among the bamboo. As he walked beneath the moonlit canopy, a faint glow caught his attention. At first he thought it might be a trick of the light, a reflection of the moon upon dew-covered leaves. But the glow remained steady, shining from deep within the grove itself. Curious, the old man stepped off the path and moved closer. There, among hundreds of ordinary stalks, stood one unlike any he had ever seen. A soft golden radiance seemed to shine from within the bamboo, illuminating the surrounding leaves and casting delicate patterns of light upon the forest floor. Without realizing it, the bamboo cutter was about to begin one of the most beloved stories in Japanese folklore, a tale that would be told and retold for more than 1,000 years. Before we discover what waits inside that mysterious stalk, welcome to the Sleepy Legends channel. Tonight we journey into one of Japan's oldest and most enchanting stories, the tale of Princess Kaguya, a child of extraordinary beauty whose life would connect humble villagers, powerful nobles, an emperor, and even the moon itself. Along the way, we will wander through bamboo forests, explore the customs of ancient Japan, visit elegant imperial courts, and discover how a simple folktale became one of the most enduring legends in Japanese culture. Like many of the stories we share here, the tale of Princess Kaguya blends history, mythology, wonder, and mystery into a narrative that continues to captivate audiences centuries after it was first written down. If you enjoy peaceful journeys through mythology, folklore, and history, consider liking the video and subscribing to the Sleepy Legends channel. And if there is a legend from anywhere in the world that you would like us to explore in a future episode, feel free to share it in the comments below. Now, let us return to the moonlit bamboo grove. The old bamboo cutter stood silently before the glowing stalk, his hands resting upon the handle of his knife. The forest around him seemed unusually still, as though even the night creatures had paused to witness what was about to happen. With careful hands, he cut into the shining bamboo. Inside, nestled within the hollow stalk, sat a tiny child no larger than his thumb. She was dressed in delicate garments and surrounded by a gentle light that seemed almost alive. The old man's eyes widened in amazement, for he knew immediately that this was no ordinary child. Who was she? From where had she come? And why had she appeared within a stalk of bamboo beneath the light of the moon? To answer those questions, we must travel back into the world of ancient Japan, where mountains were home to spirits, where the changing seasons shaped daily life, and where a mysterious princess would one day leave an entire nation gazing upward at the moon. The old bamboo cutter remained motionless for several moments, scarcely believing what he had discovered. Nestled within the glowing stalk sat a tiny child, no larger than his thumb, surrounded by a warm radiance that illuminated the hollow interior of the bamboo. Though she was impossibly small, there was nothing fragile about her presence. She seemed calm, alert, and strangely at home within her luminous cradle. With the utmost care, he lifted the child into his hands. The gentle light moved with her, casting a soft glow across his weathered fingers and the folds of his simple clothing. As he gazed upon the tiny girl, a feeling settled over him that he could not easily explain. It was not fear, nor was it surprise alone. Rather, it felt as though he had stumbled upon something sacred. The journey home that evening seemed shorter than usual. The bamboo grove, which had been his workplace for many years, suddenly felt transformed. Every rustling leaf and swaying stalk appeared touched by mystery, as though the forest itself had been quietly keeping a secret. When he arrived at his modest home, his wife was waiting near the doorway. Like her husband, she had spent a lifetime devoted to simple work and daily responsibilities. Their lives had been shaped by the changing seasons, by planting and harvesting, by repairing tools, preparing meals, and enduring the hardships that often accompanied life in ancient Japan. The couple had known both joy and sorrow during their years together. Yet one sadness lingered quietly in their hearts. They had never been blessed with children of their own. As the old man carefully opened his hands and revealed the tiny child, his wife's eyes widened with astonishment. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply gazed at the miraculous little girl and wondered how such a thing could be possible. Then the child smiled. It was a small smile, barely noticeable, yet it seemed to fill the room with warmth. Whatever doubts or fears the couple might have felt began to fade. In their place came a growing certainty that this child had been entrusted to their care for a reason. Stories of miraculous children appear in cultures throughout the world. In some tales, children emerge from rivers, flowers, eggs, or trees. They arrive unexpectedly, often carrying with them the promise of transformation. Such stories speak to an ancient human fascination with mystery and possibility, reminding listeners that extraordinary events sometimes emerge from the most ordinary places. In Japan, however, few miraculous births are as memorable as the discovery of a child within a glowing stalk of bamboo. To understand why this image captured the imagination of generations, it helps to know something about the role bamboo played in daily life. For the people of ancient Japan, bamboo was far more than a plant. It was one of the most useful materials available. Strong yet flexible, bamboo could be fashioned into baskets, fences, containers, tools, fishing equipment, and even parts of buildings. Entire communities depended upon it. Bamboo groves could be found throughout the countryside, their tall green stalks forming peaceful forests that rustled continuously in the wind. Even today, bamboo carries symbolic meaning in Japanese culture. Its ability to bend without breaking has long been admired as a symbol of resilience and endurance. Its rapid growth and evergreen appearance connected to ideas of vitality and renewal. Perhaps this is one reason the legend begins within a bamboo grove rather than a palace or temple. The story emerges from the natural world itself, from a place familiar to ordinary people. As the days passed, the old couple devoted themselves to caring for the mysterious child. Though she had been no larger than a thumb when first discovered, something remarkable soon became apparent. The child was growing. Not merely growing in the normal way that children do, but growing with astonishing speed. Each day seemed to bring changes that would ordinarily take weeks or months. Her tiny limbs strengthened. Her features became more defined. Her bright eyes observed everything around her with quiet curiosity. The old couple watched in wonder as the child developed before them. Rather than feeling alarmed, they accepted each new miracle with gratitude. To them, the girl's presence felt like a blessing that had arrived late in life, transforming their modest household into a place of joy. Outside, the seasons continued their eternal cycle. Rain fell upon the bamboo groves. Summer insects sang in the evenings. Autumn leaves drifted from distant hillsides. Yet within the small home of the bamboo cutter, something extraordinary was unfolding. As the mysterious child continued to grow, another wonder soon revealed itself. Whenever the old bamboo cutter entered the grove to harvest bamboo, he occasionally discovered pieces of gold hidden within the stalks. Sometimes the treasure appeared as small nuggets. Other times it seemed to materialize where none had existed before. Whatever its form, the result was undeniable. The couple's circumstances began to improve. For most people living in ancient Japan, prosperity was never guaranteed. Life depended heavily upon weather, harvests, and good fortune. A single season of poor crops could bring hardship. An illness or accident could alter the course of an entire family. Yet fortune now seemed to follow the bamboo cutter wherever he went. Little by little, the humble household became more comfortable. The couple no longer worried constantly about survival. Their home improved. Their clothing became finer. Food became more plentiful. It was as though the child's arrival had brought blessings not only to their hearts, but also to every aspect of their lives. Many versions of the tale emphasize this transformation. The miraculous child does not merely appear. She changes the world around her. Prosperity flows from her presence just as surely as light once flowed from the bamboo stalk where she was found. As the months passed, the child grew into a young girl of remarkable beauty. Those who encountered her often struggled to describe what made her so extraordinary. Her appearance was certainly striking, yet many storytellers suggest that her beauty extended beyond physical features alone. There seemed to be a radiance about her, an elegance, a sense that she belonged to something greater than the ordinary world. Eventually, the bamboo cutter decided it was time to give the girl a proper name. In the oldest versions of the story, learned individuals are consulted, and a name is chosen that reflects both her beauty and her mysterious origins. In time, she would become known as Kaguya Hime. The name would echo across centuries, surviving long after kingdoms rose and fell, long after emperors and nobles passed into history. Today, more than 1,000 years after her story was first written down, people around the world still recognize the Moon Princess of Japan. Yet at this stage of the tale, she was simply a beloved daughter. The old couple cherished every moment they spent with her. For years they had imagined what it might be like to raise a child. Now that dream had become reality in the most unexpected way imaginable. As Kaguya matured, word of her beauty gradually spread beyond the immediate village. Travelers carried stories from one community to another. Visitors spoke of an extraordinary young woman whose grace seemed almost supernatural. Such stories often grow larger with each retelling. A curious rumor becomes a local legend. A local legend becomes a tale shared across provinces. Yet in the case of Kaguya, many who came expecting exaggeration found themselves astonished by the truth. Before long, people were traveling considerable distances simply for the chance to catch a glimpse of her. This growing reputation reflects an important aspect of life during the era in which the story was shaped. The world of ancient Japan was deeply influenced by ideas of refinement, beauty, poetry, and elegance. These values would later flourish during the Heian period, an age remembered for its literature, artistic achievement, and appreciation of subtle beauty. The tale of Kaguya reflects many of these ideals. Although the story contains magical elements, it is also concerned with questions of grace, longing, duty, and the fleeting nature of earthly happiness. For now, however, those themes remained hidden beyond the horizon. The young woman herself seemed content to spend her days quietly. While others spoke about her growing fame, she often appeared thoughtful and reserved. There were moments when she gazed toward the distant sky with an expression that suggested she was listening for something beyond the reach of ordinary hearing. No one yet understood the significance of those moments. No one knew that the mystery of her birth was only the beginning. And no one could have imagined that the destiny awaiting Kaguya would one day draw the attention of princes, nobles, emperors, and even the moon itself. The years passed gently within the household of the bamboo cutter and his wife. The child who had once rested in the palm of a man's hand now stood as a graceful young woman whose beauty seemed to defy easy description. Wherever she went, admiration followed, yet those closest to her noticed qualities that extended far beyond appearance alone. Kaguya possessed a quiet presence that often set her apart from others. She spoke thoughtfully, listened carefully, and carried herself with a calm dignity unusual for someone so young. Visitors frequently arrived expecting to encounter a legendary beauty. Many departed speaking instead of her kindness, intelligence, and serene manner. Meanwhile, stories about her continued to spread. The villages surrounding the bamboo groves were connected by winding roads, rivers, and footpaths traveled by merchants, pilgrims, craftsmen, and officials. News moved more slowly than it does today, yet remarkable stories often traveled surprising distances. With each retelling, the tale of the mysterious girl from the bamboo grove reached new listeners. Soon, people from far beyond the local countryside began hearing whispers of an extraordinary young woman whose beauty rivaled that of figures found in poetry and legend. To understand why these stories attracted so much attention, it helps to step briefly into the world of ancient Japan. Beauty was not viewed merely as physical appearance. Elegance involved speech, manners, clothing, education, artistic talent, and an appreciation for the changing seasons. A person might be admired for composing a beautiful poem, arranging flowers thoughtfully, or expressing emotion with subtle restraint. Refinement was considered a skill that could reveal a person's character as much as their outward appearance. Many of these values would reach their height during the Heian period, a time remembered for literature, courtly culture, and artistic achievement. The world that later readers imagined around Kaguya was one in which beauty and elegance carried profound social importance. In such a world, stories of an exceptionally graceful young woman naturally captured attention. As interest in Kaguya grew, the bamboo cutter found himself facing an unexpected challenge. Curious visitors frequently appeared near his home. Some arrived respectfully, while others seemed determined to satisfy their curiosity regardless of propriety. The old man had spent most of his life in relative obscurity. He was accustomed to peaceful days among the bamboo and quiet evenings at home. Now strangers traveled considerable distances simply to learn more about his adopted daughter. At first, he greeted these visitors with patience. Over time, however, the growing attention became difficult to manage. Crowds gathered, questions multiplied. Rumors spread faster than facts. The peaceful household that had once existed at the edge of a bamboo grove found itself at the center of an expanding legend. Throughout all of this, Kaguya remained remarkably composed. She neither encouraged the attention nor seemed particularly interested in it. While others spoke endlessly of her beauty, she often preferred simple activities and quiet moments of reflection. The praise that excited others appeared to leave her largely unchanged. In many versions of the tale, there is a subtle suggestion that Kaguya views the world differently than those around her. She appreciates kindness and companionship, yet there is also a sense of distance, as though part of her mind remains focused on something beyond ordinary experience. The first hints of her deeper mystery begin to appear during this stage of the story. Sometimes she would gaze toward the horizon as evening approached. At other times, she seemed unusually thoughtful beneath the light of the moon. Those around her noticed these moments, but attached little significance to them. After all, young people often dream about the future. No one yet suspected that Kaguya's thoughts might be reaching far beyond the world they knew. As the years continued to pass, the old bamboo cutter faced a decision that many fathers eventually encounter. His daughter had grown into adulthood, and according to the customs of the time, discussions of marriage would soon become unavoidable. Yet finding a suitable match for Kaguya would prove far more difficult than anyone could have imagined. Before long, word of Kaguya's beauty reached members of the nobility. Men of wealth and influence began hearing stories about the mysterious young woman who lived far from the great centers of power. Some dismissed the accounts as exaggeration. Others became intrigued. Curiosity soon gave way to determination. Suitors began arriving from increasingly distant regions. Some were the sons of powerful families. Others held important positions within the government. All hoped to win the affection of the woman whose reputation had become the subject of widespread fascination. The road leading to the bamboo cutter's home grew busier than ever. Several suitors attempted to catch a glimpse of Kaguya by waiting outside the property for days at a time. Others sent gifts, poems, or messages expressing their admiration. A few became so devoted to the pursuit that they neglected their normal responsibilities. their efforts rarely produced the results they desired. Kaguya remained secluded from public view. She showed little interest in entertaining the growing number of admirers who sought her attention. This only increased their fascination. The less accessible she became, the more determined many of them were to meet her. Such behavior may seem unusual today, but poetry, courtship, and romantic pursuit occupied an important place in aristocratic culture. Skilled poetry was often considered a mark of education and refinement. A carefully crafted verse could convey admiration, longing, humor, or sorrow more effectively than lengthy speeches. Throughout Japanese history, poems frequently served as messages exchanged between potential lovers. The suitors who sought Kaguya, therefore, did what many noblemen of their era might have done. They composed verses. They delivered gifts. They demonstrated persistence. They attempted to prove their sincerity through patience and devotion. None of it seemed to matter. The young woman remained as distant and mysterious as the moon itself. As months passed, the situation grew increasingly difficult for the bamboo cutter. Although he loved his daughter dearly, he also worried about her future. The attention surrounding her showed no signs of diminishing, and many of the men seeking her hand occupied positions of considerable influence. Refusing such individuals indefinitely carried risks. Eventually, the old man approached Kaguya and spoke honestly about his concerns. He explained that many honorable men wished to marry her and suggested that she might consider choosing one of them. Her response was calm but firm. She had no desire to marry simply because others expected her to do so. If someone wished to earn her hand, they would need to prove themselves worthy in a truly extraordinary way. This decision would soon transform the story. Rather than selecting a husband from among the many admirers who surrounded her, Kaguya devised a series of challenges unlike anything the suitors anticipated. Each task would require the retrieval of a legendary treasure associated with distant lands, ancient mysteries, and seemingly impossible adventures. In this way, the tale begins to expand beyond the bamboo grove and into a wider world filled with folklore and wonder. The challenges Kaguya would present were not random. Each object carried symbolic meaning, connecting the story to traditions, legends, and beliefs that had circulated throughout East Asia for centuries. Some treasures were linked to Buddhist traditions. Others drew upon stories of immortals, dragons, and distant realms beyond ordinary human reach. The suitors, however, did not yet know any of this. They believed they were approaching the end of their pursuit. In reality, their journeys were only beginning. Soon 5 prominent noblemen would step forward to accept Kaguya's challenges. Their quest would lead them toward legendary treasures, unexpected failures, elaborate deceptions, and lessons that listeners have remembered for more than 1,000 years. And through it all, the Moon Princess would remain as mysterious as ever, watching quietly as fate unfolded around her. The news spread quickly among the noblemen who sought Kaguya's hand. At last, it seemed that the mysterious young woman had offered a path forward. She had not rejected the possibility of marriage outright. Instead, she had established a condition. If a suitor wished to marry her, he would first need to complete a remarkable task. To many of the men pursuing her, this seemed encouraging. Noble families often expected prospective husbands to demonstrate their character, status, or abilities. A challenge, however difficult, appeared preferable to endless uncertainty. Their optimism would not last long. 5 prominent noblemen emerged from the larger group of admirers. Each possessed wealth, influence, and confidence. Each believed himself capable of accomplishing whatever Kaguya required. And each would soon discover that the object she requested existed more comfortably in legend than in reality. The first suitor was Prince Ishitsukori, a man of noble birth and considerable reputation. When he approached Kaguya's family, he expected to receive a challenge worthy of his position. Instead, he received an impossible assignment. Kaguya informed him that she would consider marrying him if he could bring her the stone-begging bowl once used by the Buddha. The prince listened carefully, perhaps expecting additional instructions. There were none. The object she requested was among the most sacred and legendary relics imaginable. For listeners today, it may be helpful to understand why this challenge seemed so daunting. Buddhism had spread throughout East Asia over many centuries, carrying with it stories about the life and teachings of the Buddha. Relics associated with the Buddha were treated with enormous reverence, and many legends surrounded sacred objects connected to his earthly life. A begging bowl carried particular significance. According to tradition, Buddhist monks carried bowls used to receive food offered by the community. The practice symbolized humility, simplicity, and detachment from worldly wealth. The Buddha himself was frequently depicted with such a bowl, making it one of the most recognizable symbols within Buddhist tradition. Yet obtaining the actual bowl used by the Buddha was another matter entirely. The Buddha had lived many centuries earlier in India. His life was separated from the world of ancient Japan by vast distances, different cultures, and the passage of time. Even if such a relic existed, locating it would have required an extraordinary journey. Prince Ishitsukori nevertheless accepted the challenge. Or at least he claimed to. The prince departed with great confidence, assuring everyone that he would return with the legendary treasure. His departure likely impressed many observers. After all, the quest sounded suitably heroic. It involved sacred history, distant lands, and the possibility of achieving something few others would dare attempt. Years passed. The prince remained absent for a surprisingly long time. Stories circulated regarding his travels. Some claimed he had journeyed across distant provinces. Others suggested he had traveled abroad in search of ancient temples and hidden relics. The truth, however, was far less adventurous. Eventually, Prince Ishitsukori returned carrying what appeared to be an ancient stone bowl. He presented it proudly, confident that his efforts had succeeded. The relic looked convincing. It possessed an aged appearance and seemed worthy of a sacred history. Many people might have accepted it without question. Kaguya did not. She examined the bowl carefully. Then she quietly observed that something was wrong. In some versions of the story, Kaguya notes that the genuine bowl of the Buddha should possess a subtle radiance. Sacred objects associated with enlightened beings were often believed to carry signs of their spiritual significance. The bowl presented by Prince Ishitsukori, however, remained stubbornly ordinary. No glow appeared. No miracle occurred. The deception became impossible to ignore. Whether the prince had knowingly commissioned a forgery or simply convinced himself that a substitute would suffice, the result was the same. His quest ended in failure. The first great challenge had exposed a simple truth. Confidence alone could not overcome the impossible. Prince Ishitsukuri departed in embarrassment. For Kaguya, the outcome seemed neither surprising nor particularly upsetting. She had anticipated the difficulty of the task from the beginning. If anything, the failed quest reinforced her belief that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. The second suitor soon stepped forward. This was Prince Kuramachi, another nobleman of considerable status. Unlike the first prince, he possessed a reputation for intelligence and ambition. When Kaguya assigned his challenge, many observers wondered whether he might fare better than his predecessor. His task sounded no less impossible. Kaguya requested a jeweled branch from the legendary island of Horai. To understand why this challenge captivated audiences for centuries, we must pause briefly to explore the fascinating mythology surrounding Horai itself. In East Asian folklore, Horai was often imagined as a paradise beyond the ordinary world. It was a distant island associated with immortality, wisdom, and supernatural beings. Some stories described it as a land where magical trees bore jewels instead of fruit. Others spoke of immortal sages who dwelled there beyond the reach of sickness, aging, and death. The island occupied a place somewhere between geography and imagination. People told stories about it. Poets celebrated it. Artists painted it. Yet no one could point to a location on a map and say with certainty, there it is. Like many legendary places throughout world mythology, Horai represented a destination that could never quite be reached. For Prince Kuramachi, however, reaching it became the price of winning Kaguya's hand. The prince accepted the challenge and departed with great ceremony. His journey attracted considerable attention. Compared with the search for the Buddha's bowl, this quest possessed an even greater sense of adventure. The idea of sailing across unknown seas toward an island of immortals captured the imagination of everyone who heard the story. Months passed, then years. Like the first prince, Kuramachi remained absent long enough for rumors to flourish. Some believed he had crossed dangerous oceans. Others imagined him enduring storms, navigating treacherous waters, and searching distant horizons for signs of the legendary island. When he finally returned, he appeared triumphant. In his possession was a magnificent branch adorned with precious jewels. Gold shimmered along its surface. Gemstones sparkled in the light. The object seemed almost too beautiful to describe. At first glance, it appeared exactly like something one might expect from a mythical paradise. The prince confidently presented the jeweled branch to Kaguya. Surely, he believed, no one could doubt the authenticity of such a remarkable treasure. Yet the truth has a habit of revealing itself. Before long, craftsmen arrived at the prince's residence demanding payment for their work. Piece by piece, the story emerged. Rather than journeying to Horai, Prince Kuramachi had secretly commissioned skilled artisans to construct the magnificent branch. The object was beautiful. It was impressive. It was entirely artificial. Thus, the second great quest ended much like the first. Another nobleman had attempted to bridge the gap between legend and reality through deception, only to discover that Kaguya could not be so easily misled. Meanwhile, the Moon Princess remained patient. 2 suitors had failed, 3 still remained, and the challenges ahead would prove even more extraordinary than those that had come before. With 2 suitors already humbled by failure, one might imagine that the remaining noblemen would reconsider their ambitions. The challenges set before them had proven nearly impossible. One prince had attempted to pass off an ordinary bowl as a sacred relic. Another had commissioned artisans to construct a jeweled branch from a legendary island that likely existed only in myth. Yet neither failure discouraged the men who remained. If anything, the setbacks seemed to strengthen their determination. Each suitor believed that he would succeed where the others had failed. Human nature has always possessed a curious confidence in personal exceptions. We often recognize the mistakes of others while quietly assuming that our own efforts will somehow produce a different outcome. The third suitor was a powerful nobleman named Abe no Miyoshi. His challenge would take him into the realm of creatures, legends, and distant lands. Kaguya instructed him to bring her the legendary fire rat's robe. Unlike the Buddha's bowl or the jeweled branch of Horai, the fire rat's robe was not associated with a specific historical tradition. Instead, it belonged to the rich world of East Asian folklore, where extraordinary animals often possessed magical qualities and where objects carried powers beyond those found in ordinary life. According to legend, the robe was woven from the fur of a remarkable creature, sometimes described as a fire rat or fire mouse. The garment possessed an extraordinary property. It could not be burned. No matter how fierce the flames, the robe would remain unharmed. Stories of magical clothing appear in cultures around the world. Some garments grant invisibility. Others provide protection or supernatural abilities. Such objects often symbolize humanity's desire to overcome the limitations of ordinary existence. The fire rat's robe represented protection from one of nature's most feared forces. For much of human history, fire occupied a complicated place in daily life. It provided warmth, light, and the ability to cook food. Yet it also threatened homes, crops, and entire communities. In cities built largely from wood and paper, a single spark could become a devastating disaster. A garment immune to fire would have seemed almost miraculous. Abe no Miyoshi accepted the challenge with confidence. Unlike some of the previous tasks, this one appeared to involve obtaining a specific object rather than locating a mythical location. Surely, he reasoned, such a treasure could be found somewhere in the wider world. Messengers were dispatched. Merchants were consulted. Contacts in distant regions were approached. Eventually, a robe matching the description was acquired and presented to Kaguya. The nobleman appeared pleased with himself. The garment was beautiful, rare, and costly. It certainly looked like the sort of treasure one might expect from an ancient legend. But appearances, as previous suitors had already discovered, could be deceptive. Kaguya examined the robe carefully. Then she proposed a simple test. If the garment truly possessed the legendary qualities attributed to it, there was an obvious way to verify its authenticity. place it in the fire. The suggestion likely caused considerable discomfort among those present. The robe had undoubtedly cost a great deal to obtain. Destroying it would be unfortunate if it were genuine, and embarrassing if it were not. Nevertheless, the test proceeded. The robe was exposed to flame. Within moments, it began to burn. The result was unmistakable. Rather than emerging untouched from the fire, the garment behaved exactly as ordinary cloth would. Smoke appeared. Fabric blackened. The treasured robe was reduced to ashes. The third suitor's quest had ended. Like the men before him, Abe no Miyoshi had presented an object that could not withstand scrutiny. Whether he had been deceived by others or had knowingly accepted a counterfeit remains unclear in different versions of the tale. What mattered was the outcome. The legendary fire rat's robe had failed to prove itself. As word of yet another failed quest spread, the remaining suitors faced increasing pressure. 3 prominent noblemen had accepted Kaguya's challenges. 3 had failed. The 4th suitor, Great Counselor Otomo no Miyuki, nevertheless chose to continue. His challenge would prove among the most dangerous yet. Kaguya requested a jewel from the neck of a dragon. Unlike previous treasures, this object required no search through temples or negotiations with merchants. Dragons occupied a central place in the mythology and folklore of East Asia. They were powerful beings associated with water, storms, rivers, oceans, and the forces of nature itself. Importantly, East Asian dragons differ significantly from many Western depictions. Rather than fire-breathing monsters lurking in caves, they were often viewed as majestic and supernatural creatures connected to wisdom, weather, and cosmic balance. Many legends describe dragons dwelling beneath the sea or within cloud-covered heavens. They could be benevolent, dangerous, or unpredictable, depending upon the circumstances. Obtaining a jewel from such a creature was not merely difficult. It was perilous. Dragon jewels themselves occupied an important place in folklore. These luminous treasures were often said to possess magical properties. In some stories, they granted wishes. In others, they controlled tides, storms, or hidden knowledge. For listeners hearing the tale centuries ago, the challenge would have sounded nearly impossible from the very beginning. Yet Otomo no Miyuki accepted. Perhaps he imagined himself returning as a legendary hero. Perhaps he believed determination would accomplish what cleverness and wealth had failed to achieve. Whatever his reasoning, preparations began almost immediately. Ships were gathered, sailors were hired, supplies were loaded. The counselor set out upon a journey that would carry him far from the safety of familiar shores. Here the story takes on the atmosphere of a maritime adventure. Ancient people often viewed the open ocean with a mixture of fascination and fear. Beyond the sight of land stretched a realm of uncertainty, where storms appeared without warning and distant horizons concealed unknown possibilities. Many myths place supernatural encounters upon the sea for precisely this reason. The ocean already feels mysterious. Dragons merely make it more so. According to the tale, Otomo no Miyuki's voyage did not proceed as planned. Powerful storms arose. Winds battered the ships. Towering waves transformed the sea into a landscape of chaos and danger. Whether these events were interpreted as ordinary bad luck or as signs of dragon displeasure likely depended upon the listener. For the sailors aboard those vessels, however, the distinction probably mattered very little. The danger was real regardless of its cause. As conditions worsened, fear spread among the crew. The dream of obtaining a dragon's jewel suddenly seemed less appealing than simply surviving the journey. Stories vary in their details, but many versions suggest that the expedition ultimately abandoned its objective. The counselor returned without the treasure. Unlike some of the earlier suitors, he had not attempted to manufacture evidence or present a convincing counterfeit. Instead, he encountered a challenge so formidable that completing it became impossible. In a curious way, his failure may have been the most honest of all. By this stage, a pattern had become unmistakable. The challenges posed by Kaguya were not intended merely to test wealth or persistence. They exposed something deeper. Again and again, ambitious men confronted the gap between desire and reality. Some attempted deception. Others relied upon confidence. Still others faced dangers beyond their ability to overcome. None succeeded. 2 suitors now remained. Their quest would involve one final search upon dangerous heights and another pursuit involving one of the smallest creatures in the natural world. Yet those seemingly different challenges would reveal the same enduring truth that had guided the story from the beginning. Some treasures cannot be claimed simply because one wishes to possess them. For ambitious noblemen had already tested themselves against Kaguya's challenges, and 4 had failed. Some had relied upon deception. Others had placed their faith in wealth, influence, or determination. Yet every attempt had ended in disappointment. The 5th and final suitor was a nobleman known as Isanokami no Maritari. As with the others, Kaguya presented him with a task that seemed simple when spoken aloud, but nearly impossible in practice. She requested a cowrie shell from the nest of a swallow. At first glance, the challenge sounded almost modest compared to retrieving a dragon's jewel or a branch from the legendary island of Horai. After all, swallows were ordinary birds. They could be seen throughout the countryside, darting through the air in graceful arcs and building nests beneath the eaves of homes and temples. Yet appearances can be misleading. The specific shell Kaguya requested was said to be hidden within a swallow's nest, making it both extraordinarily rare and exceptionally difficult to obtain. The challenge required patience, observation, and a willingness to pursue something small and elusive rather than grand and spectacular. There is a certain wisdom hidden within this final quest. Many people imagine great achievements as dramatic adventures involving distant lands, legendary monsters, or priceless treasures. Yet some of life's most difficult tasks involve paying close attention to ordinary things. A tiny object hidden in an inaccessible place can prove just as challenging to acquire as any mythical relic. The nobleman accepted the challenge and began his search. Stories differ in their details, but most versions describe a series of increasingly desperate attempts to obtain the coveted shell. The task demanded more than simple persistence. Swallow nests were often built in locations that were difficult to reach safely, tucked beneath roofs, cliff edges, or elevated structures. The pursuit became frustrating. then exhausting, then dangerous. In one of the more memorable episodes of the tale, the nobleman attempts to reach a nest by climbing to a great height. Determined to succeed where others had failed, he pushes himself further and further in pursuit of the tiny treasure. The effort does not end well. Accounts vary regarding exactly what happened. Some suggest he fell. Others imply that he suffered injuries while attempting the retrieval. Whatever the details, the outcome remained consistent with the rest of the story. The shell was never successfully obtained. And so the fifth quest ended much like the four before it. Failure had now visited every suitor. The results were remarkably varied. One man presented a false relic. Another commissioned a counterfeit treasure. A third watched his supposedly magical robe burn to ashes. A fourth was driven back by storms and danger. The fifth discovered that even the smallest challenge can become insurmountable. Yet beneath these differences lay a common lesson. Kaguya's challenges were never truly about the objects themselves. The treasures served another purpose. They revealed the character of those who pursued them. Some men responded to difficulty with deception. Others relied upon confidence unsupported by reality. A few confronted genuine danger. In every case, the pursuit exposed truths that might otherwise have remained hidden. For Kaguya, the outcome changed very little. She remained as mysterious as ever. As news of the final failed quest spread throughout the land, interest in Kaguya only continued to grow. If anything, the stories surrounding her became even more extraordinary. People spoke not only of her beauty, but also of the impossible challenges she had given to powerful men. The failures of the suitors became tales in their own right, repeated by travelers, merchants, and storytellers wherever people gathered. In time, these stories reached the highest levels of society. Eventually, word arrived at the imperial court. The court occupied a world very different from the quiet bamboo grove where Kaguya had been discovered. It was a place of ceremony, poetry, politics, and refinement. Here, noble families competed for influence, scholars pursued learning, and artists sought to capture beauty through words and images. Among those who heard the stories was the emperor himself. Unlike the previous suitors, the emperor possessed something none of the others could claim. His authority extended across the realm. His interest alone was enough to command attention from countless officials and nobles. Naturally, the tales of Kaguya awakened his curiosity. At first, he likely regarded the stories as many rulers regard unusual reports from distant regions. Such accounts often grow more impressive with each retelling. A beautiful woman becomes the most beautiful woman in the land. A remarkable event becomes a miracle. Yet the stories persisted. Again and again, reports arrived describing the same mysterious young woman. Again and again, visitors returned speaking of her uncommon grace and beauty. Eventually, curiosity became impossible to ignore. The emperor decided that he wished to see Kaguya for himself. This moment marks an important turning point within the story. The earlier chapters focus largely on quests, challenges, and folklore. The arrival of the emperor introduces a more emotional dimension. Themes of longing, duty, and separation begin to emerge with greater clarity. For the first time, someone approaches Kaguya not merely as a treasure to be won, but as a person whose presence leaves a lasting impression. When arrangements were made for the emperor to encounter her, expectations ran high. Countless stories had preceded the meeting. The ruler of the land was about to meet the woman whose reputation had already humbled princes and captivated noblemen. Yet even those expectations would prove insufficient. When the emperor finally beheld Kaguya, he was deeply moved by what he saw. The descriptions preserved in the tale emphasized more than physical beauty. Like many who encountered her, the emperor sensed something unusual about her presence. She seemed both part of the world and somehow apart from it, familiar and mysterious at the same time. Such contradictions often appear in folklore when storytellers attempt to describe beings who do not fully belong to the ordinary world. The encounter left a profound impression upon him. From that moment forward, the emperor's interest in Kaguya would become one of the central threads of the story. Unlike the failed quest of the suitors, his connection to her would be shaped not by impossible treasures, but by something far more complicated: affection, admiration, and eventually a deep sadness that neither power nor authority could overcome. For although no one yet understood it, the greatest mystery surrounding Kaguya had not been solved. It had barely begun. The emperor found that he could not easily forget Kaguya. In the days and weeks following their meeting, her image returned to his thoughts again and again. He had encountered many remarkable people throughout his life. As ruler of the realm, he regularly met nobles, scholars, artists, and dignitaries from across the land. Yet something about Kaguya remained distinct in his memory. Perhaps it was her beauty. Perhaps it was her composure. Or perhaps it was the quiet sense of mystery that seemed to surround her wherever she went. Whatever the reason, the emperor soon began sending messages to her. In the world of ancient Japan, written correspondence occupied an important place in relationships. A carefully composed letter was far more than a simple exchange of information. The choice of words, the quality of the paper, the style of handwriting, and the accompanying poem all conveyed meaning. A beautiful message reflected refinement. A thoughtful poem demonstrated sensitivity. An elegant response revealed intelligence and character. Many courtships unfolded through such exchanges, with poems serving as expressions of admiration, longing, and affection. The emperor therefore did what a cultured ruler of his era might naturally do. He wrote to Kaguya. She replied, yet her responses remained respectful rather than encouraging. Again and again, messages traveled between the imperial court and the home of the bamboo cutter. Again and again, the emperor expressed his admiration. And again, Kaguya maintained a polite distance. This puzzled many observers. The attention of the emperor was not something easily dismissed. For countless families throughout history, such interest would have been regarded as an extraordinary honor. Yet Kaguya seemed unmoved by considerations of status or power. Her refusals were neither rude nor defiant. They were simply unwavering. The emperor, however, did not interpret her reluctance as hostility. Instead, his admiration continued to deepen. Unlike the earlier suitors, he did not attempt to win her through impossible quests. He sought instead to know her, to understand her, and to spend time in her presence. This distinction gives the emperor a somewhat different role within the story. The princess viewed Kaguya as a prize to be obtained. The emperor increasingly viewed her as a person to be cherished. For a time, this difference seemed to offer hope. Yet even the emperor could not solve the mystery that stood before him. As months passed, subtle changes began to appear in Kaguya herself. Those closest to her noticed them first. The young woman who had once moved through daily life with calm confidence occasionally became withdrawn. Moments of quiet reflection grew more frequent. Sometimes she would pause during ordinary activities and stare toward the sky as though listening for a distant voice. Most often, these moods appeared when the moon was full. On such nights, Kaguya would sit silently for long periods, gazing upward at the silver disk hanging above the landscape. The sight seemed to awaken emotions she could neither hide nor fully explain. A sadness lingered there, a longing, a sense of separation. The bamboo cutter and his wife observed these changes with growing concern. They had raised Kaguya as their daughter. They had celebrated her joys and shared her sorrows. Yet now they found themselves confronted by emotions they could not understand. Whenever they asked what troubled her, she offered only vague answers, at least at first. As the months continued to pass, Kaguya's melancholy deepened. The moon, which had once seemed merely beautiful, now appeared to exert a powerful influence over her emotions. Each full moon brought renewed sadness. Each passing season seemed to draw her thoughts further from the world around her. The change became impossible to ignore. The bamboo cutter worried constantly. His wife watched helplessly as their beloved daughter struggled with feelings she could not fully explain. The household that had once been filled with quiet happiness now carried an undercurrent of uncertainty. Eventually, the old couple could bear the mystery no longer. One evening, they gently asked Kaguya to tell them the truth. For a long time, she remained silent. Then, at last, she spoke. What she revealed would change everything. Kaguya explained that she was not truly of the earth. The words must have seemed impossible to comprehend. For years, the bamboo cutter and his wife had known that their daughter's arrival was miraculous. They had discovered her within a glowing stalk of bamboo. They had witnessed her extraordinary growth and the blessings that accompanied her presence. Yet even these wonders had not prepared them for what they were about to hear. Kaguya belonged to the moon. In many retellings of the story, she explains that she had come from a celestial realm beyond the world of ordinary human beings. Whether this realm is described as a kingdom, a heavenly court, or a lunar paradise varies according to the version being told. Yet the essential idea remains the same. Her true home was not among mountains, rivers, forests, and villages. It lay far above them. Today, when we think of the moon, we often imagine a barren landscape of rock and dust. Modern science has given us a detailed understanding of its physical nature. Yet for most of human history, the moon occupied a very different place within the imagination. It was a realm of mystery, a source of stories, a destination for dreams. Cultures around the world populated the moon with gods, spirits, rabbits, immortals, and celestial beings. People gazed upward at its changing face and imagined entire worlds hidden beyond its luminous surface. The tale of Kaguya belongs to this rich tradition. The moon is not merely a distant object in the sky. It is another world. As Kaguya continued her explanation, the source of her sorrow became clear. Messengers from the moon would soon arrive to bring her home. The time she had spent among humans was coming to an end. For the bamboo cutter and his wife, the revelation was heartbreaking. The daughter they loved was not simply planning a journey. She was preparing to leave forever. The old couple struggled to accept what they had heard. Surely, they thought, there must be some way to prevent this separation. Surely, the bonds formed through years of love and devotion counted for something. Yet Kaguya seemed certain. The summons could not be refused. Destiny, which had quietly accompanied her since the night she emerged from the bamboo stalk, was finally drawing near. Meanwhile, the moon continued its silent journey across the heavens. Night after night, it rose above the forests and fields of Japan. Night after night, its pale light spilled across rooftops, rivers, and distant mountains. And with each passing moonrise, the time remaining to Kaguya grew shorter. The great mystery that had surrounded her from the beginning was finally being revealed. But the revelation brought no comfort, only the knowledge that a farewell was approaching. And for everyone who loved her, that farewell was beginning to feel inevitable. News of Kaguya's revelation did not remain confined to the bamboo cutter's household for long. Eventually, word reached the emperor that something extraordinary was about to occur. The woman he had admired for so long was claiming that she came from the moon, and that celestial beings would soon descend to carry her away. To many people, such a story would have sounded impossible. Yet the emperor had spent enough time thinking about Kaguya to know that ordinary explanations had never fully accounted for her presence. From the moment she appeared in the world, mystery had followed her. The miraculous discovery in the bamboo grove, her astonishing growth, her beauty, and the failures of every suitor all pointed toward something beyond ordinary experience. The emperor therefore took the warning seriously. If heavenly messengers truly intended to take Kaguya away, he was determined to prevent it. His response reflected both his affection for her and the immense authority he possessed. Orders were issued. Guards were assembled. Preparations began on a scale unlike anything the bamboo cutter's humble home had ever witnessed. Soon, soldiers surrounded the property. Archers took positions. Watchmen stood alert throughout the night. The quiet household that had once rested peacefully beside the bamboo grove now resembled a fortified stronghold. For the old bamboo cutter and his wife, the emperor's intervention offered a measure of hope. Although they could scarcely imagine opposing celestial powers, they found comfort in the knowledge that others were willing to try. Perhaps, they thought, destiny could be resisted. Perhaps the moon's summons could somehow be delayed. Perhaps Kaguya might remain with them after all. As the appointed night approached, however, Kaguya herself appeared less optimistic. She expressed gratitude for the emperor's concern, yet she gently suggested that earthly defenses would accomplish very little. The forces coming for her belonged to a realm beyond human authority. Walls would not stop them. Weapons would not frighten them. Soldiers would not deter them. Such statements did little to reassure those around her. Yet despite her warnings, the preparations continued. The night of the full moon finally arrived. A brilliant silver light spread across the countryside. The bamboo grove shimmered softly beneath the heavens. Every leaf and blade of grass seemed outlined in pale radiance. The soldiers remained vigilant. The emperor's representatives stood ready. The bamboo cutter and his wife waited anxiously beside their daughter. For a time, nothing happened. The moon climbed higher. The night grew still. Then the sky began to change. Many versions of the tale describe clouds of unusual brightness gathering around the moon. Others speak of a luminous glow descending from above. Whatever form the event takes in the telling, the effect is unmistakable. The boundary between earth and heaven begins to open. A company of celestial beings appears. The arrival of the heavenly visitors transformed the entire scene. The guards who had prepared themselves to confront ordinary threats suddenly found themselves facing something beyond human understanding. These were not invading armies or rival nobles. They were beings associated with the celestial realm itself. Their appearance varied across different retellings of the legend. Some storytellers described them as radiant figures clothed in garments of light. Others imagined noble attendants descending from the moon in magnificent processions. In every version, however, they carried an unmistakable sense of authority. They had not come to negotiate. They had come to retrieve Kaguya. The soldiers could do nothing. Their bows remained useless. Their numbers proved irrelevant. The celestial visitors passed through every earthly defense as effortlessly as moonlight passing through an open window. For the bamboo cutter and his wife, the moment was devastating. For years, they had loved Kaguya as their own child. They had watched her grow, celebrated her joys, worried over her sorrows, and built their lives around her presence. Now they faced the possibility of losing her forever. Their grief was profound. The old bamboo cutter pleaded with the heavenly visitors. Surely, he argued, the years they had spent together must count for something. Surely, the bonds formed through love and devotion deserved recognition. Yet destiny continued to move forward. The celestial attendants presented Kaguya with a robe from the moon. This garment occupies an important place within the symbolism of the story. In many versions, it possesses the power to erase earthly attachments and sorrows. Once worn, It would restore Kaguya fully to her celestial nature. In a sense, it represented the final separation between two worlds, earth and heaven, mortality and immortality, memory and forgetting. Before putting on the robe, Kaguya was granted time to say farewell. She spoke first to the bamboo cutter and his wife. Her gratitude was sincere and heartfelt. Though she had come from another realm, she acknowledged the love and kindness they had shown throughout her years on earth. Their care had given her a home. Their affection had given her happiness. Their devotion had given her memories she would never fully lose. The scene remains one of the most moving moments in Japanese folklore because it reflects a universal human experience. Nearly everyone, at some point in life, must say goodbye to someone or something they cherish. The details differ. The emotions remain familiar. Kaguya also prepared a final message for the emperor. In some versions of the story, she leaves behind a letter expressing gratitude for his kindness and sincerity. Unlike the suitors who sought to possess her, the emperor had come to care for her as an individual. His affection had been genuine. Yet even genuine affection could not alter what was about to happen. At last, the time for departure arrived. Kaguya donned the celestial robe. As she did so, a remarkable transformation occurred. The sadness and anxiety that had weighed upon her throughout the preceding months began to fade. The burdens of earthly life slipped away, replaced by the calm certainty of one returning home. Then, surrounded by the radiant company from the moon, she ascended into the heavens. The procession rose slowly into the night sky. Higher and higher it climbed. The watching figures below could do nothing but stare upward as the moon princess departed from the world she had briefly called home. And when she was gone, only moonlight remained, shining softly over the bamboo grove where her story had begun. When dawn finally arrived, the world seemed strangely unchanged. The bamboo grove still swayed in the morning breeze. Birds continued their songs. Mist drifted across fields and hillsides as it had countless times before. To a casual observer, the landscape appeared exactly as it had the day before. Yet for those who had loved Kaguya, everything was different. The bamboo cutter and his wife awoke to a home that suddenly felt far larger and far emptier than it had ever seemed before. Every room contained memories. Every familiar object recalled moments spent with the daughter they had raised and cherished. The silence felt unfamiliar. For many years, their lives had revolved around Kaguya's presence. Now that presence had vanished like moonlight fading at sunrise. The emperor experienced a similar sorrow. In time, he received the farewell letter that Kaguya had left behind. Along with the message came another extraordinary gift, an elixir said to grant immortality. The gift reflected a curious contrast at the heart of the story. Kaguya was returning to a realm beyond aging and death. The emperor, meanwhile, remained part of the human world, a world defined by the passage of time. The elixir seemed to offer a bridge between those two realities. Yet the emperor refused to drink it. This decision has fascinated readers for centuries. From one perspective, immortality appears desirable. Human beings have long imagined what it might be like to escape aging, illness, and death. Myths from around the world contain magical springs, sacred fruits, and miraculous potions that promise eternal life. Yet such gifts often carry unexpected consequences. What value? The emperor wondered, would immortality possess in a world without Kaguya? The person whose memory mattered most to him was gone. An endless life without her seemed less appealing than a mortal life shaped by remembrance. According to the legend, the emperor ordered that the elixir and Kaguya's letter be carried to the summit of the tallest mountain in the land. There they would be burned. The image is both beautiful and symbolic, a message from the moon, a gift of immortality, a mountain reaching toward the heavens, all brought together in a single act of farewell. This episode also leads to one of the most famous details associated with the story. Many versions connect the mountain in question to Mount Fuji, Japan's highest peak. The association proved remarkably enduring. Even today, the legend remains linked to the mountain's towering silhouette. Some storytellers suggested that the smoke occasionally seen drifting from the volcanic peak represented the lingering traces of the emperor's fire. Others imagined the mountain standing as a permanent connection between earth and the heavens, reaching upward toward the realm where Kaguya had returned. Whether taken literally or symbolically, the image possesses a dreamlike power that has helped the tale endure for generations. The story of Kaguya has survived for more than 1,000 years. That fact alone is remarkable. Countless stories have been told throughout human history. Most vanish with time. A few survive for centuries. Only a small number continue to captivate audiences across vastly different eras and cultures. The tale of the Moon Princess belongs to that rare group. Part of its endurance comes from its age. The story is preserved within Takatori Monogatari, often translated as the tale of the bamboo cutter. Many scholars regard it as one of Japan's oldest surviving narrative works, making it an important landmark in the history of Japanese literature. Yet age alone does not explain its popularity. The story continues to resonate because it speaks to experiences that remain deeply familiar. It is a tale about family, a tale about love, a tale about longing, and perhaps most of all, it is a tale about impermanence. The bamboo cutter and his wife receive an unexpected blessing, only to discover that they cannot keep it forever. The emperor encounters someone he deeply admires, only to learn that affection cannot alter destiny. Even Kaguya herself experiences the tension between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. Such themes continue to speak to modern audiences because they reflect realities that every generation encounters. Nothing remains unchanged forever. Seasons pass, children grow, relationships evolve. Life moves forward whether we wish it to or not. Yet the story is not entirely sorrowful. Alongside its melancholy runs a quieter message. Although Kaguya eventually leaves, the love she shared with those around her remains meaningful. The years spent together mattered. The kindness exchanged mattered. The memories endured. In this sense, the tale offers a gentle reminder that the value of something is not measured solely by its duration. A beautiful moment remains beautiful even if it cannot last forever. Perhaps this idea helps explain why the story continues to inspire artists, writers, filmmakers, and storytellers throughout the modern world. Each generation discovers new meanings within the legend while preserving the essential emotions that have always defined it. Even now, when people gaze upward at the moon on a clear evening, they sometimes remember the ancient story of the princess who came from another realm. They remember the bamboo grove, the devoted old couple, the failed suitors, the faithful emperor, and the luminous figure who returned to the heavens. More than 1,000 years have passed since audiences first encountered her story, yet Kaguya continues to travel through the imagination of humanity, moving quietly from one generation to the next. Like moonlight itself, her presence lingers, not fully grasped, not fully explained, an unsolved mystery carried across the centuries. And so, as our journey through the legend of Kaguya draws to a close, we find ourselves once again standing at the edge of a quiet bamboo grove. The moon hangs overhead just as it did on the night when an elderly bamboo cutter first noticed an unusual glow among the stalks. The leaves whisper softly in the breeze. Shadows drift across the forest floor. The world feels peaceful, timeless, and unchanged. Yet we know that an extraordinary story unfolded here. A tiny child appeared within a stalk of bamboo. An aging couple discovered unexpected joy. A young woman grew into a figure of wonder whose beauty and mystery captivated an entire nation. Princes pursued impossible treasures. An emperor offered sincere devotion. And somewhere above it all, the moon waited patiently for its lost daughter to return. What makes this story endure is not merely its magical elements. Many myths contain miracles, celestial visitors, and supernatural events. What gives the tale of Kaguya its lasting power is something quieter and perhaps more familiar. It understands that some of the most important things in life cannot be possessed. The suitors spent years trying to obtain legendary treasures. Again and again, their efforts failed because they approached the world as though every prize could be won through determination, wealth, or cleverness. The story gently suggests otherwise. Some gifts arrive freely, some moments cannot be forced, and some mysteries remain mysteries no matter how hard we try to solve them. The bamboo cutter understood this better than anyone. He never searched for Kaguya. He never sought magical treasures or celestial wonders. He simply walked into the bamboo grove as he had done countless times before, carrying out the ordinary work of an ordinary day. Then, without warning, his life changed forever. There is something comforting about that idea. Many legends celebrate heroes who conquer kingdoms, defeat monsters, or accomplish impossible feats. The tale of Kaguya reminds us that life is often transformed by unexpected encounters rather than grand ambitions. Sometimes wonder arrives quietly. Sometimes it appears when least expected. And sometimes it vanishes just as suddenly. Yet even when such moments pass, they leave something behind. The years that the bamboo cutter and his wife spent with Kaguya were temporary. The emperor's affection could not alter destiny. The celestial visitors ultimately carried the moon princess away. Yet none of those experiences were meaningless because they ended. In many ways, they became more precious because they could not last forever. This idea appears again and again throughout Japanese art, literature, and philosophy. The beauty of a cherry blossom is heightened by the knowledge that it will soon fall. The colors of autumn feel special because winter inevitably follows. A moonlit night seems precious because dawn is already approaching. Kaguya's story belongs to this tradition. Its sadness and its beauty cannot be separated. Each gives meaning to the other. Perhaps that is why generations of listeners have continued returning to the tale. They may come seeking a story about a moon princess, but they leave carrying something more reflective. A reminder that love matters. A reminder that kindness matters. A reminder that even fleeting moments can leave lasting impressions. And perhaps on some quiet evening, when the moon is bright and the world has grown still, they remember the bamboo grove once more. They remember the old couple looking skyward. They remember the emperor gazing toward distant mountains. They remember a luminous figure ascending into the heavens. And they wonder what became of her after she returned home. Did Kaguya walk once more among celestial gardens beneath an eternal moon? Did she remember the bamboo grove and the family who loved her? Did fragments of her earthly life remain within her heart despite the power of the heavenly robe? The story never fully answers such questions. Instead, it leaves them drifting gently across the centuries, inviting each listener to imagine their own response. Perhaps that is exactly as it should be. Not every mystery requires a solution. Not every story requires a complete explanation. Some legends endure because they leave a small space for wonder. And so, as the moon continues its ancient journey across the night sky, the story of Kaguya continues as well. It travels from storyteller to listener, from generation to generation, carried forward by memory and imagination. The bamboo grove remains. The moon still rises. And somewhere between earth and heaven, between history and folklore, the moon princess waits. An enduring symbol of beauty, mystery, longing, and home. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of Japan's most beloved legends. Until our next tale, may your evening be peaceful, your dreams be filled with wonder, and your path be illuminated by stories both ancient and timeless. And now, beneath the quiet light of the moon, we leave the bamboo grove behind.